Hi everyone, and welcome to yet another review, second one in as many days, if not sooner actually, by the time I get them published. A bit like buses, my reviews, you wait for one for ages and then you get two at once. But anyway, thanks for stopping by and watching. This is obviously a review of Fans Toys FT-47 rig, which is their version of a masterpiece scaled huffer. Now I've been really eagerly awaiting this one because I was a big fan of their hunk. And this looks to be really on a par with that, certainly from the videos and the pictures I've seen online. You know, they've made it look really great, so I'm kind of eagerly awaiting unboxing this one and taking a look for myself. Speaking of the box, let's take a quick 360 look at the packaging. And yeah, they continue the more recent trend of issuing product shots, and going for sort of the more stylized artwork, which I really like. I think it looks really nice. And then obviously as we move around, we do get the product shots on the back, and there you have them with some of the other mini bots. You've got their hunk, as I mentioned earlier, and then their was it Sheridan, their Warpath. I was not really interested in him, so I didn't get that. But yeah, those two look really lovely in G1y together, and the alt mode also looks pretty sweet as well. I don't believe there's too much more to show. You're getting these QR codes on the boxes now for video instructions of transformations, which is good. Although I believe that someone said the other day on one of the forums that one of their last videos on YouTube, potentially even for this figure, got taken down, copyright reasons, because they use Disney music in it. I really don't know why they're doing that. It's very silly. The music's very incongruous anyway. It's very out of place for the videos. They'd be much better off using generic music, so they don't get taken down. But anyway, that is the packaging. So what we'll do is we'll get this off camera, I'll get it unboxed, and I'll bring everything out and we can take a look at what we get. So just give me a second and I'll be right back. Okay, and here we are back with Rig. And I had to do a couple of things out of the box just to get him sorted. The arms here peg in to the backpack and they weren't pegged, so those joints flopped down without it, so I had to push those in, and I had to just tidy up a few panels and things like that. I didn't really have to do too much with it. I had to spin the waist 180 as well because the legs were facing backwards, but other than that, not really too much in the way of tidying up to do. This panel here, which I've seen hasn't been pushed down on some, was already pushed down on mine, which is good. So yeah, not a huge amount to do to get him sorted out of the box. And first impressions are that he is a very nice looking little bot indeed. I really like the way it looks. Now, obviously, you know, if you watch my channel, you'll know I'm very toon centric in my collection tastes. I do actually prefer the more sort of matte pastel finishes to Transformers. I just prefer those over this sort of metallic finish. And obviously, having both in my collection does create a little bit of incongruity. But that said, I do really like the way this looks. I like the paint they've gone for. It's possibly not this lighter tone, possibly not quite as lavender and bright as I'd like in contrast to the darker, but it is still fairly accurate. And under the lights, the metallic sheen, it shows better than it does in other conditions. So actually looking at it like this, it's pretty nice. When I had it out from underneath the lights, this wasn't quite as obvious a contrast, but it still looks good. Yeah, I'm really liking the way it looks. Obviously, I've put a couple of his weapons in his hand already, and you do get quite a few little bits and pieces with this. They seem to have mirrored what you get with Bad Cube's Huff, and perhaps even surpassed it. So I'll do a little 360 on him so you can see what he looks like. Obviously still have the QC sticker on mine. He's leant back a fair bit at the moment, should probably stand him up a bit more. He is very back heavy. He's quite a weighty little figure, I'll say that. So he's quite chunky for his size, and he is very back heavy as you'd expect. So I'll probably have to do a fair bit in order to balance him out so he doesn't topple over. But yeah, I mean, there is a fair backpack, but it's pretty compact, which is good. It looks okay from all angles, really. You know, I like the fact there aren't too many gaps here. That's good. Obviously visible screws, but what are you going to do with that? And yeah, it looks good as you follow him around. And just overall, I think a very nice looking little bot. Let's go over what you get in the packaging first and foremost. So obviously you get Rig himself, and then you get these two guns. You get this little pistol here, and then you get this this larger rifle. And they tab in by way of a slightly different mechanism, which I can... It's not something that's unprecedented. I've seen it on other figures, but it's unusual. I'll bring in this... You get a third gun as well, which is this one here. I'm not sure this ever's featured in anything Toon related or not, and I can't remember if Bad Cube's Huff came with a third gun or not. But obviously they fold up for storage as usual with the handles on the gun. But as you'll see, the tab is on the back, so it actually fits into the palm, and then you close the hand around it. It's okay. I've seen this work better on other figures that have this same design. With this one, it was a bit tricky to get it in and then closed without the gun doing that, you know, off axis where it bends in or whatever. But I did manage it eventually. It was easier with the rifle than it was with the pistol, but they, yeah, they both look fine. I think they look really nice finish on them, silver finish, and it gives you plenty of play options. And I'm not entirely sure whether he can wield that dual-handed by the way the arms work. I haven't tried that yet, although it is shown, I think, isn't it, on the I think it might even be shown on the back of the box. Yes, it is. So apparently you can do that, albeit it doesn't look the most natural. So I haven't quite decided how I'm going to display mine yet. Maybe I'll have him with two pistols or the rifle or whatever, or maybe just how I've got him here, which is how I have my my Huff displayed. Anyway, get that out of the way. There is one other thing you get. I'll bring him in a bit closer so you can see this one to start with. There you go. Really nice head sculpt. That's one thing that immediately struck me as being an improvement over the Bad Cube effort, which itself wasn't bad, ironically. But this is a definite improvement over that. And you do get not an alternate face sculpt, you get an entire spare head here, which has a very Huffer looking expression on it. I think you'll agree. The moaning Huffer face looks really good. I believe the way that you change this is, I'm probably going to display it with this face, to be honest. This just screams Huffer to me, so I might even change that now. I think the way you change it, according to the instructions that I briefly looked at, you pull the head off of the peg. It's quite tight. It does come off good. I always worry about doing that. You think you're going to snap it off of the mushroom peg. Franz Toys Willis gave me nightmares doing that. I honestly thought I was going to break it with that. How I didn't, I don't know. And then you just take this and you slide it back on. Again, easier said than done. Maybe if I turn it, there you go, turn the head, give me a bit more leverage. And there we go. Right, he is on. And I think that, honestly, that's really, really screams Huffer to me. His little, oh, but prime face. Yeah, I think he's a really nice looking little bot. As I say, a fair amount of heft to him. A lot of die cast in there. He looks the part. I like the colours. I like the way they pop. A little bit of colour difference between the plastic and the metal. You're always going to get that. But by and large, it looks pretty good. And it seems to be in slightly better condition than my Hunk was. I had a problem with Hunk where his waist swivel was impeded by a pin that wasn't pushed in all the way. So when I turned it, it scratched the paint. It did then push the pin in, but it scratched the paint. So whenever I use the waist articulation, you can see the scratch, which is annoying. But this guy looks to be fairly good. I mean, there's a bit of rough paint on his side here. It might even show up under the light as being slightly rougher when you look at it. Maybe not. I can definitely see it in person though. But the rest of the figure, that side's fine, and the rest of the figure is really nicely painted. So far, I don't have any really major complaints. No real gripes. One thing I've noticed while handling him is that he is very back heavy, as I said, and he doesn't really seem to stand that well. His feet seem quite uneven, and I don't think there's anything I need to be doing with them to get them more even. They look to be properly transformed, as best I can tell, but they just don't seem to Yeah, see, he seems quite back heavy. So I feel like I need to be constantly moving him back. He does seem to have a bit of play in his middle there. It's not an actual ab crunch, but there's a little bit of play, which from the videos I've seen comes into play when you do the transformation. So maybe you need to have that angled forward slightly just to counterbalance him, and that helps. He seems fairly stable now, but certainly when I was posing him to get him on camera earlier, when I brought him out of the box, he was toppling backwards quite a lot. Anyway, let's do the articulation checklist, shall we? Because I don't imagine this is going to have as much. Like, obviously it's a mini bot and hunk was fairly limited, but let's just see what we've got, shall we? So the head is obviously on a mushroom peg, and you can look up, he's obviously impeded by his backpack, much in the way that hunk is impeded by the backboard on the back of his head. So you get a limited amount of backwards motion there. You can push that back a little bit to get a bit more, but not too much. You get a very minimal downwards look, hardly any at all, nothing to write home about. And of course his head can do a 360. You know, you could have him looking all the way back if you decided. So yeah, we'll do a 360. Obviously I'm not going to bother to turn it all the way around, very little point. Arms, what do we have here? We have, let's just get this gun out actually, because it's just in the way. You can see the rifle there with the two, the sort of the two handles on it there. So yeah, the arms. One of the reasons I really wanted this actually were because it's so much more accurate to the toon than anything we've had before. Because obviously Huffer has one of the most ridiculous cartoon models ever in the way his arms are designed. They're so I don't know, they're so impractical. They just don't look like they would function properly. But anyway, this looks pretty spot on to the model, but it does create its own issues. It does limit the figure somewhat. So anyway, some nice soft ratchets get you 360 on the arm. And you have a nice shoulder bend, or it seems so at first, but then it's only just about 90. So there's only a single jointed elbow at 90, which, you know, come on, Fans Toys, it's 2022, and you're taking steps backwards here with your articulation. It's not great. I know it's only a mini bot, but still, you know, that's not brilliant. Hands are just the Masterpiece Carbot style, so all the fingers are pinned together. They open and close. That's about it. The thumb doesn't move. You may just about be able to make out the recess there that the weapons go into. This one seems to be better than that one. I might have to use a bit of a knife to get some of the flash out of that one. The bit I hadn't mentioned, I'm going to now, because this is one of the more limiting factors, is the shoulder joint. So obviously, because of the design, although it can go up, it can only go up to there when the arm is like that because it hits. If you have it like that, you can get a lot more range of motion out of it. It will go all the way up like that, which is kind of good. The only problem with it, or the main problem with it, I feel, is that there isn't a butterfly joint, so you can't push this forward or backwards. It actually locks in to the cab. There is a tab there, you see in there, that goes in. If you don't do that, that joint pops down like that. But you're supposed to lock that in on both sides to prevent that happening. It's a bit annoying because you feel like it should be able to come forward so it can go across his chest like that, but it can't, and it's just a very weird design. But it's a weird design predicated on a weird design, animation speaking. Anyway, that's my real gripe about the arms, but it's as I said, they are limited by the original design, and I do love the way that they actually have gone the extra mile to replicate this rather than doing what everyone else has done, which was just giving him normal shoulders, which is the main reason or one of the reasons I wanted to upgrade to this guy anyway. Talking about ab crunch, there wasn't one really. You get a little bit of play, but that's not really an ab crunch to my mind. I think it's there for transformation. He has a waist swivel though. You can do 360 on that should you desire. Again, going back to how basic this is really, you have, let's move this hip skirt out of the way. Oh, that's very stiff. I hate it when they're like this. You feel like you're going to break them. In fact, I don't want to move that one now. I'm going to try the other side. Maybe they're just like, maybe that's the limit on them. Surely that's not right. Anyway, I'm not going to force those because I'm not entirely sure they go any further, and I don't want to scratch paint or break anything at the moment. Surely that has to go more than that. But it doesn't feel like it does. Oh, okay, that's quite... No, maybe it doesn't. That is pretty limiting, actually. So you can't get a full split. You can only go out that far on him, which is fine. I guess you're not really going to go much further than that, are you? So I don't, you know, even though I'm complaining about it, it's not actually that much of a complaint. The legs are nicely ratcheted. The hip skirts at the back side, they don't move, so you can only go back this far. But they are nicely ratcheted, as I say. They're not going to go anywhere. My real bugbear, and again, even at this size, this is an issue for me, and not what I'd expect from Fans Toys, but they have gone the route of using a single piece for the front hip skirt. So when you kick the leg up, which you can do to 90, and it's very solid on that ratchet, it's not going anywhere, but it just looks really unsightly because you can see the ball joint on this leg here. And that to me is not what I expect from, you know, a masterpiece scaled figure from Fans Toys in this year. Yeah, it is disappointing. I won't lie. But I guess it is what it is. I mean, you know, we've got what we've got here, haven't we? But it's still a nice, you know, it still looks the part, and I like the ratchets. The ratchets are very good, but it's just unsightly. Anyway, moving down to the knees, you get a nice deepish knee bend, again on a nice soft ratchet, which isn't going anywhere, feels the part. Oh, ironically, he can stand on 1 foot. He seems to have more trouble standing on 2 feet than he does 1 foot. But yes, that's good. So he has that nice soft ratchet there. And then the ankles, they are on a rocker here, so you get a very unnatural, for a human anyway, kind of pivot there. And you get some sideways motion, again, part of the transformation, I'm guessing, rather than it being intentional articulation. You don't get any toe pivot that I can see. Again, very much like Hunk. Hunk had a very solid foot that could barely move at all. You had a tiny ankle rocker on it, but that was it. That was probably the most disappointing part of Hunk. And again, yeah, the feet on this aren't perfect, but they're not terrible. So I think I say that about a lot of Transformers toys these days. You know, they're not perfect, but they're not terrible. That seems to be like the benchmark. So yeah, articulation wise, he's okay. Oh, I've pulled that out. See, that comes out very easily, and then you've got to tab it back in. Yeah, he seems fine. I mean, like, again, there are bits that I'm a little bit annoyed about. Like this arm piece, I would have loved a butterfly joint there, and I would have liked slightly more articulation in the toe there, and the foot in general. But overall, he looks pretty good. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, obviously, the wrists, you can swivel 360 as well if you need to. But yeah, looking at him here, he's a nice solid little bot, looks the part. You can get some nice poses with him. I think if I angle that forward now as well, you know, he has got like a little bit of a hip thrusting pose going on there. He looks pretty good. Again, those heroic proportions, as much as a dumpy little bot like Huffer can have. And I think it really looks the part. I'm very, very happy initially out of the box with this, I have to say. I've got a few minor paint issues. There's one small paint issue there as well, which shows up more under the light than it probably will when I've got it under natural light in my display. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. So I think what I'll do now, just quickly, before we move on to transformation, is bring in Bag Cube's Huff version 2 for a comparison. So let's just move them out like this. And this guy, I've had it for a number of years. It cost me 30 quid from China. Got it from eBay. Expected, I think I've mentioned this in the review I did for this guy, fully expected it to be a box of beads or something. And it was the actual figure that I ordered, and it was 30 quid, took a couple of weeks to arrive, and it's probably one of, if not the best bargains I've had. Probably only beaten by the Art of Deformation Power Glide that I got, which was 20 something quid and is a fantastic little mini bot. But anyway, it's served me well as my huffer for a number of years now. I really like the colours on it. I think the colours purple, the two-tone purple they've used is really spot on to the animation model. I think that looks really good. I almost kind of prefer it to this, but you can see what I mean about the more matte finish to the sort of shiny metallic finish. This actually is easier to distinguish and to discern between the two, whereas this is more subtle. But both have their merits, and I do like this. I'm not bad-mouthing this. I just, you know, Fans Toys are very heavily lean into this aesthetic for their mini bots, this metallic look, and whereas this, you know, is not. Other than that, I mean, this wins across the board, I'm afraid. No disrespect to Bad Cube, it's been a perfectly good figure. Bad Cube figures are good, but they straddle that line between toy and toon, and they always have terrible feet. That is the curse. So yeah, when I look at this, I mean, I'm not seeing anything on this that I like more than I like this. You know, the cab here is much bigger. The head is not accurate at all compared to that. The arms, you can see the shoulders are far more traditional shoulders. The proportions of the body and the legs are very off compared to this. The legs totally opposite to the way they should be. They're much thinner there and bigger in the feet, whereas that's the opposite, and then you have those terrible feet. When you look at the profile this way, you know, if you thought Rig had a backpack, well, Huff has got him beaten there by a little bit. And yeah, from behind as well, just the Fans Toys version is just far tidier. You don't have these visible wheels and these bits here. It just looks nicer across the board. Yeah, as I say, I can't think of a single thing that I prefer about the Bad Cube, other than maybe the price. It was a third of the price of the Fans Toys offering, and it does still have some nice presence. And I will ultimately do what I do with most of my duplicates. I don't tend to sell them on because I'm a bit of a hoarder like that. I don't really like selling them on, so I usually transform them into alt mode and use them in the alt mode display, although I'm rapidly running out of room for doing that. But even in alt mode, from what I've seen, this guy is more accurate than this guy. So although it's not too bad, so we'll have a look anyway. We'll do a comparison because I'm going to transform them both anyway in a minute. So yeah, I think looking at it this way, clear winner on the right here. Fans Toys knocks it out of the park. Very impressed with this, actually, more than I have been with some recent Fans Toys stuff. Really nice looking little figure. So anyway, nothing me jabbering on. I'll get now there's a figure I wasn't that impressed with, jabber, but I'll get them transformed off camera, and I'll be back with a look at the alt mode for Rig, and then we'll do a comparison with Huff as well. So yeah, just bear with me and I'll be back shortly. Okay, and I'm back, and that was a far less arduous task than I was expecting for a Fans Toys transformation. Actually didn't need to use any video review or anything to get through that. I did it all from the instructions. There are, I think, a few bits that aren't covered, one of which I'm going to point out in a moment. But yeah, on the whole, that was pretty decent, and I think the end results are really good. This is definitely Huffer. I really like the way it looks. It is more toon accurate than what we've had before, definitely. The shape of the cab, for example, is more toon accurate than previous versions. It's still stylized. It's still not completely, you know, that sort of chibi G1 toon aesthetic, but it's, you know, it's pretty much there. So yeah, I really like the way it looks. I think it's a really nice looking piece. There are a few fiddly bits getting all of this bed pegged in. You have to finagle a few bits and pieces to get it working, but by and large it's not too bad. And you know, he's hidden away under there. You can see his head. I suppose you could turn his head around if you wanted, but you know, you don't really see it hidden under there. But everything seems to sort of tab together pretty well, and there aren't too many gaps. And yeah, I think it looks nice, and it rolls fairly well. Looks pretty sturdy, feels pretty sturdy as well. So yeah, the one thing the instructions definitely didn't mention were these little pieces on here. I couldn't see that they were mentioned. You're supposed to sort of fold those up when you've done the transformation to hide them, so it gives it a bit of a cleaner look, which I did on one side, but I left that side so I could show you. But yeah, other than that, the instructions are relatively easy to follow for Fans Toys, and I had a bit of a moment trying to get all of this to concertina and push down and align, and this is where that little bit of play in the waist comes in. You have to push it down and then bend it slightly so that pops in first before you then engage all of this, even though they tell you to do this first in the instructions. So a bit of a tip, if you're doing it, maybe the order they give you isn't quite the order that you'll need to do it in, but getting the cab pegged in was quite difficult because there's a lot of little tiny tabs that need to go into notches and things, and this whole piece forms from the feet. These are the feet, and this tabs in there, and then that tabs in at the top, and then the little windows tab into the front, and there's a lot to it anyway. So but like I say, it took a little bit of getting there, but ultimately not a frustrating, unenjoyable experience actually, which is something I don't often say about Fans Toys. And the fact that I got it there without breaking it is also a big plus, because again, not something I always say about Fans Toys. Couldn't even get anywhere near Jabber. That felt like it was going to snap, so I gave up. But yeah, give you a 360, more dedicated 360 than I have so far. This is perhaps the worst bit, this flap here. It doesn't seem to want to sit flush on mine, but it doesn't look terrible, but it's just not quite there. But everything else, yeah, looks really good. I did have a few paint flecks while I was doing it, but hopefully nothing that's going to show up in robot mode. I think it was mainly off the plastic and the bits that were popping in and out, so that they should be hidden. But yeah, really nice looking alt mode, I think. Really, not spot on G1 accurate, but very evocative and certainly close enough. I'm going to bring in Huff now as well, just so you can see the competition. And yeah, like compared to Rig, Huff is really, yeah, looking past his sell-by date in both modes now, I think. He is, again, just not G1 accurate. I always knew that, but it never really bothered me. All my faction symbols seen better days there on that side. That one's held up a bit better. But yeah, the cab's not accurate. As you can see, the cab is supposed to be this slanted cab here. But it's just very straight up and down here. I don't know, I think, you have this exposed bed and the proportions are off and things like that, so it's very hollow looking from above and the back. Obviously you have the ability to hitch the trailer onto there, but I think you can actually do that with Masterpiece. This worked with MP10's trailer. This, I believe, works with MP44's trailer as well, although I think you probably have to transform something to get that to work. It's not a gimmick I'm going to use, but it is something you can do. I mean, you have a bit of a gap there, obviously, but the rest of the bed is so much better. You may even have a gap there because I've done something wrong. I don't think so, because it's all fit together as it should do. And looking at the pictures, I'm looking at the box, that gap is intended to be there, so no, I haven't done anything wrong. And it's the damn sight better than this, where you have a gap there anyway, and all of this gappiness. I think the arms, the gimmick of hiding his arms never really works that well on either of them. I think it looks probably about as good on both. There's pros and cons to both. I find getting these bits clipped over on here was harder than those. I don't know if I've got the arms in the correct orientation, but they seem to be okay. It looks all right, so I'm not going to fret about it too much. It seems to be, in the orientation the instructions say they should be anyway, so I'm going to leave that as is. It doesn't look bad, as I said. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot more to say about the alt modes. Alt modes are what they are, aren't they? There's not any articulation. I guess there is one play feature. I'll just move him off slightly to the side. There is one play feature which I quite like. If you take the rifle, you can fold the stock up, or that up there, sorry, on the stock, and you can tab both the other guns in, and then it looks like it will tab into here somewhere. Oh, that panel there, yeah, that panel has a habit of going down, which you don't want it to do. You want it to be up, and then I've just messed that up doing that. You want that to be up and then flat like that, but I believe this will go on here. Ah, see, now I've done it. Now I've unpegged everything. in trying to demonstrate that on camera. It's always the worst idea. Don't demonstrate things on camera, do them first to make sure they actually work. Okay, right, now that is back in where it should be in the orientation. This looks like it should peg in, but it doesn't want to. Is there a reason for that? I can't tell. It certainly looks like on the instructions that you should be able to peg that in to there like that, and it acts as a cannon on the back. It's definitely shown on the box, and it looks like it's in that place, so Lord knows why it doesn't fit. Perhaps that'll be something I need to go through the instructions to check out. Trying to actually look now. Yeah, it looks like it just clicks in to this piece. That's what they're showing on the instructions, but very clearly not wanting to do that when I actually try it. So, but that's the thing you're supposed to be able to do with it anyway, is to click it into there, and then it will act as a gun. But yeah, not having as much success with that as I'd have liked, and I'm not really bothered enough about it to worry too much. It's probably something to do with the orientation of this piece. Let's face it, that's probably supposed to stick more upright. Where's my little tool? See if I can do it anyway. Just waste everyone's time while I mess around with this. Apologies, but yeah. Oh, I see. It looks like that's potentially supposed to. Oh, see, this is the problem when you get to little panels. That's almost certainly supposed to fold down, but it's trying to keep that other piece in the right orientation while you do it. It seems to be almost impossible to do. You like almost want to push this piece through while pushing the other one out, and I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. Oh, there we go. Right, hold on. That was a bit of messing around, wasn't it? So yeah, so it looks like you get it like that. Oh, for God's sake, even doing it that way doesn't work properly. It's just the panels are just too small, you know. There's too much give in them, so when you actually go to do it, you do want to do what I've done, which is to get those panels in like that, but then you almost need to push that through again and support it while you tab the gun in. But I'm going to give it a go because, you know, why not? Can I push that in while I push the gun in? Will that work? No, it won't. I actually am giving up now. That's just not a brilliant design. That tab, getting that tabbed in was a problem, I will say, getting it to stay there, but getting it to stay there with this other piece, you just end up popping it like I've done there again. So yeah, thanks for making me look foolish on camera, Rig. Not difficult, I know, but annoying that it's doing this. It seemed to be fairly well aligned, so I knew I was probably courting disaster there, pretending that it worked, or that I knew what I was doing. But there you go. It does kind of tab in. Is that worth it? Was that worth the effort? Almost certainly not. Anyway, take that out of the way. That's just one of the issues I had with it, really, was getting all this back piece tabbed in properly. And yeah, you know, you can see the woes I had, and I'm getting lots of plastic flying everywhere, which I never like. So I'm going to stop doing that now. But anyway, that's a play feature. You may have more success with that than I did. But yeah, there we go. Right, I think probably that's enough comparison in vehicle mode. Oh, I did forget yet again. I always do this. There's the collector card, just in case anyone mentions in the comments. Where was the collector card? Yep, there you go. Don't know if you'll be able to read that bio. I'll bring it close if you like, if you want to freeze frame it so you can read it. But yeah, that's that. That is the collector card. So again, what I'll do is I'll get these out of the way now. I'm going to leave this one in alt mode anyway as my display piece. It's very, hear the difference in the chonkiness. That is far heftier, far chonkier lad than this guy. But I'll get this one out of the way. It's going to be my alt mode display, so I'll leave it now in this form, although I don't really like to look at it because it's quite hideous. A hideous chunk of lump of orange plastic. But then I'll get old Rig transformed back, and assuming I don't break anything, I'll be back with some final thoughts momentarily. Well, there we go. that didn't take too long at all. Was quite an intuitive process as well, which is something that I don't often say about Fans Toys figures. Yeah, I got back to bot mode here without any use of the instructions at all. And there were a few bits where I had to sort of backtrack and think, oh, actually, no, that piece probably goes that way. Don't want to force anything. But yeah, on the whole, actually very intuitive transformation. So quite enjoyable. Probably the most enjoyable Fans Toys transformation that I can recollect, if I'm honest. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this guy overall. I think it's a really nice looking little bot. Really, you know, well put together, nicely decoed. Articulation probably leaves something to be desired, but again, it is a mini bot, so you can kind of forgive that to an extent. But I do think, you know, there are other bots of this size that are, you know, do have better articulation. And in fact, it's more of a MIDI bot than a mini bot anyway, isn't it? Because it's slightly bigger than your Bumblebees and your Gears and things like that. So yeah, a little bit disappointing on that front, but I just love the way it looks. I think, you know, I love this design choice. They've actually mirrored the Toon. I think that's great. I love the head sculpt. The face sculpts are great. I love the colour scheme, even though I said I'm probably more of a matte finish guy than I am a metallic finish guy. I still really like the way it looks. Looks a lot better than the finish on the bag cube version. He did take a little bit of a tumble backwards there. And I think the way it tidies up is really good. You know, that backpack compresses really well, and just going back from alt mode to bot mode then, it really made me appreciate the engineering that's gone into tidying that backpack up. There's a lot of stuff inside of there, and it's really clever how they've done it, and that the front of the bot becomes, the legs of the bot become the front of the alt mode, as opposed to the opposite tack, which is taken by most other companies. So yeah, I really like the way it looks all round. Big fan. Honestly, don't have much, if anything, negative to say. I think it's a really nice looking piece. You know, as I say, I think that the most I can say about it in a negative is that the articulation's a bit limited. I think we're doing pretty well compared to most, aren't we? So yes, this is pretty much a home run from Fans Toys. I'm really pleased I've got it. I'm going to get him faction symboled up, and he's going to take pride of place in my display next to Hunk. And my mini bots are coming along reasonably well now. Actually, there's still a couple. You know, my Cliff Jumper and my Wind Charger could do with an update, but other than that, you know, they're not looking too bad. And I saw that that Fans Toys themselves have just teased the gears. I think maybe the head sculpt on that's not quite there yet, but everything else looks, again, better than the bag cube version, certainly in terms of the feet, etc. So they're really smashing their mini bots at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to getting that. So I'll definitely pre-order that when I get the opportunity. Have just put orders in for Phantom and Jive, actually, their Mirage and Jazz, so that will be good whenever they eventually turn up. Anyway, yeah, wholeheartedly recommend this figure if you can still get hold of him. I think he cost me about £90 all in. I forget, because you know, you do the pre-orders months ago and then you pay the balance, but the balance was 70, I think, and I'm pretty sure the pre-order was something like 15 quid or something, so maybe it was like 85. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, but still, really nice looking little bot. Really good finish. Nice heft to it, and yeah, looks the part in any G1 display. So yes, I two big thumbs up from me on this occasion, and it's nice to have a review where I'm actually really positive, and don't have to pick out any major negatives or anything, unlike some of my more recent stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the review. I will be back with my final review from my most recent haul, which was X-Transbot's Jansen, their Perceptor, and that is the one that I'm going to take a little bit of time to look at reviews beforehand. I understand there are some issues with breakages and things like that, so want to just make sure I'm not falling into that trap. I've loved what I've seen so far of the way it looks. From what I've seen, it's a really hefty figure as well. A lot of die cast, some great accessories in the form of the microbots, and some of the other bits and pieces. Tons of play value. Not that I really play with them, but you know, in terms of how you would display your figures, you've got a lot of options there. IDW heads, G1 toy parts, etc. So yeah, you've got a lot of options there. Looks like a good figure, so look out for that review in, well, might try and smash that one out this weekend, depending on how I feel. I've just done 2 back-to-back, so might have a bit of a break, unwind after the week. But yeah, hopefully you'll join me for that. Until that time, it just remains for me to say thanks for watching again, and take care everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.